on 10-1. We are on a mission to help raise $10,000 today, 10-1, for Charity Water. And today, or right now, we have Clay Hebert with us, who's going to chat with us a little bit, talk about some different things. We'll take some questions from the internet and our YouTube space or our 22 Social. Hey, they should be donating. I'm saying their name, 22 Social on Facebook. So Clay, welcome. We're happy to have you, man.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for putting this together. This is great.
My pleasure. And I'm just so excited that I'm able to kind of leverage some of the relationships that I've been able to make in order to make things, make things happen.
Yeah.
One of the things, well, I'm just going to start off by asking, hey, sure, what are you working on? Let the people know. What are you working on?
Yeah.
I see you at conferences. I see you shaking hands. I see you connecting people all the time. Hey, you should know this person. You should know this person.
That's how you and I met. It was hashtags and handshakes, right? It was at Blog World we met at, I think, originally.
We did meet at Blog World, and this is at least to me, it's an interesting story, right? Because of all the work I do in this networking space, some of the best relationships that I've built were when it was totally no prep. I didn't look up the person beforehand. I didn't say, ooh, they'd be perfect for what I'm doing, and I got to make sure I bump into them.
Right.
I was hanging out, wearing a bow tie. Then Andy, how do you pronounce his last name? Andy Traub?
Yeah, Traub. Yeah.
He was like, hey, you got to meet this guy. He has bow ties.
Yeah, that's
exactly
right.
how Andy is. You got to meet this guy. He has bow ties. Clay.
That's right. And you and I sat and chatted over lunch or something at Blog World for a while. Yeah, it was great.
Just like organic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So as far as what I'm working on, to pay the bills, the main gig is helping big brands with marketing and social media and digital strategy. Not doing that as much anymore, just working with a couple big clients sort of on a retainer basis. But I'm building two other ventures because I don't have a desire to kind of scale up a digital agency. There's people that are very good at that are doing that, and that's great. I don't want to build that kind of business. So I'm building a technology startup called Spindos.com, which is a little bit in your, like we were talking about hashtags to handshakes, all about these connections and random collisions. I mean, it was a random collision that you and I are sitting here today that caused it. And so Spindos is a search engine for people inside of large organizations. So my background, before I did the Seth Godin MBA program, I spent 10 years in corporate consulting at Accenture. And Accenture employs over 250,000 people, and it's really hard to meet relevant people. Like you and I could both work for the New York office of Accenture for, let's say, 10 years and never ever meet each other. And so it's a platform that allows people in big organizations to search and find and meet relevant people online. Their corporate intranets are not really designed to do that. So that's kind of the main gig, is the technology startup called Spindos. So working with folks in the New York tech scene and meeting with companies and getting that built out. And then separate than that, over the last sort of year and a half, I've sort of become a crowdfunding expert. I've helped about 26 entrepreneurs raise about $2.5 million on crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. It sort of initially started by accident, and then helped a few more friends. A mutual friend of ours, Frank Denbo, referred me to a friend of his, and yeah, just got helped a lot of friends and friends of friends with their Kickstarter and crowdfunding stuff. So I'm turning that into an online course, because it's hard to have one foot in each canoe and sort of run that while I build Spindos. So I'm turning that stuff into a course, a self-serve course that people can kind of buy and download and learn how to succeed through crowdfunding.
Excellent. Well, people are going to want to know. So, what is the big deal around crowdfunding? Who should use this? Who does it work for?
Sure. So, one of the biggest things that I see is people don't understand there's two different types of crowdfunding, and they're very, very different. There's rewards-based crowdfunding, and that's kind of what it sounds like, which is you get a reward. Backers get a reward, and that might be a T-shirt, it might be a DVD, but they get the actual thing that gets produced. Then there's equity-based crowdfunding, which you're hearing more about lately, the Jobs Act that was recently passed and the legislation that's still getting finalized around equity-based crowdfunding. And that's where you're not giving away a sweatshirt or a DVD or a hat. You're giving away a tiny piece of equity in your company in exchange for that. So it's a little bit like if you were to raise a friends and family round, but it's like friends and family in the crowd. And so opening it up to other folks. And there's different regulations around that. You know, you have to be an accredited investor at this point for certain levels. So that's all changing, but it's really interesting that the concept is, you know, you shouldn't have to be an angel investor or a VC to be able to invest some money in a company. That accredited investor thing is going to change. So with crowdfunding, there's those two different kinds, and they're really totally different. If you're talking about building a technology startup like Spindos or like Facebook, then you might look at equity crowdfunding. I think there's pros and cons to it. If you just want to get your creative project off the ground, that's the stuff you see on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and that's rewards-based crowdfunding. So number one is there's two different kinds, and they're totally different. So you need to figure out which one. And then if it's a creative project that's a fit for Kickstarter or a platform like Indiegogo, or there's lots of other ones that are more niche and more specific. It's a great way to just get your business off the ground. It's a great way to prove and validate your business before you actually build it. In this whole new world of entrepreneurship, you know, if our dads wanted to be entrepreneurs or moms wanted to be entrepreneurs, they had to be sort of all in. You know, they had to buy the Italian restaurant down the street and redo it and things like that. And there was a lot of risk associated with sort of putting all in and, you know, buying real estate or being an entrepreneur in the old way. Now you can get started. You can have an idea, you know, hire a friend to help you make the video, throw it up on Kickstarter, and if the crowd wants what you're going to build, they're going to give you money before it's actually built. And so it's a great way to literally kickstart. I mean, that's the perfect name for the platform. Yeah. You know, new businesses and new ideas and new creative projects.
So I am one of those side hustlers.
Yes, you are.
You know, where people usually ask me, "What do you do? What do you do?" So part working for a corporation, part doing my own thing. And one of the things I've learned over time is, like, you know, anything you do, it's never as simple as it seems or sounds.
Right.
The reason why I brought this up is it as simple as, hey, I create something, I put it out there. If people like it, it's gonna you know, you're gonna make your money.
No, definitely not. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a really good point. It's probably the biggest mistake that I see people make with Kickstarter and with crowdfunding, is that they think, you know, the press loves to cover big $1 million projects and things like that, like Zach Braff and Spike Lee. And the truth is, Kickstarter and crowdfunding projects get funded before they launch, not while they launch. And what I mean by that is it's all about the pre-planning of reaching out to the sub-tribes who care. So if you're building a new, one project I helped was a cool video iPad recipe app for cooking, where the recipe is on one side and then the actual chef who created the recipe, like Thomas Keller, is on the video walking you through it step by step. So if you don't just want to read a recipe, you want to have the actual chef walk you through it. Now the sub-tribes who care about that could be Thomas Keller fans, they could be cooking show fans, they could be, you know, foodies, people who love to cook at home, that kind of thing. So how do you reach out and get that in front of people? Like a lot of marketing, I see the problem people make is they really want to get on Mashable, or they really want to get on TechCrunch, and in fact, those are probably not the customers who want to buy your product. It's better to go niche and say, who actually cares about this? People overvalue random eyeballs, and they don't do the extra legwork to find the sub-tribes who really desperately care.
It's I feel like one thing I think about is actually this campaign that we're working on here right now. Yeah. And one of the things I'm working with a team, and I've done a number of things, and I failed at a number of things. And usually the failure comes when I try and do that kind of Mashable.
Yep.
We're using Mashable as an example. It's not Mashable.
Yeah. Right.
So I got an article on Forbes.com.
Right.
But so
it's understanding the conversion of any given funnel, you know, eyeballs to interest to clicks to telling a story, you know, really telling a story to the people that want to be told that story and that want to believe that story, versus, you know, I hate any time anything's related to eyeballs or impressions, because by definition, just by saying eyeball, you're sort of like talking about a piece of anatomy that's not attached to a person and a brain and how they feel and so those with the most eyeballs don't win. It's those with the most passionate tribe of people who really care. And what's an interesting exercise is when you browse Kickstarter for successful projects, look at the number of people that actually contributed. A mutual friend of ours, AJ Leon, who is, I believe, on a little bit later, he raised $38,000 giving away the core product of what he did for Kickstarter was his book, which was free on PDF on his blog months earlier, and he only raised that from, I think, 476 people. So 476 people contributed over $38,000. He was 200% funded in 48 hours. And so you don't have to reach everybody. The key is, he had a hardcore passionate email list of, let's say, 2,000 people, and less than 25% of that number are the people that actually donated, but they showed up big as far as a contribution per backer. Yeah. So his is a perfect example of the goal is not to try to get everybody. The goal is to try to get the 500 people who will cross the street for you.
When you talk about eyeballs, we just gotta I have to throw in. First I had the ears, now I have their hearts.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. No, your affirmation. That's true. That's true. And yes, you do have to get in front of them, but you don't have to be the one that gets it in front of them. Of AJ's people, a lot of those people, like me, when I signed up, I went and told anyone who would listen. I'd grab them by the bow tie, I'd grab them by the collar, and say, "You have to sign up for AJ's email list," right? So that's passionate tribe, and you basically have this, awesome tribe / unpaid marketing force for you, as opposed to trying to reach new eyeballs by yourself. If you and I are at a cocktail party, and I said, "This is my friend Mike Rooney. He's the most talented neurosurgeon in Manhattan," and you just kind of sip your drink and shrug it, you look like a big baller neurosurgeon, right? Mm-hmm. But if you walk into a cocktail party and say, "I am the greatest neurosurgeon in Manhattan," you're a jerk, right? So how do you let your tribe tell your story for you?
That's a great point. And so working with the folks that you did, do you find that they already have a tribe, or where are you kind of jumping in this mix as you're helping people, or even starting your course? Are you saying, "Listen, check your tribe"? What? You don't have a tribe? Beat it, buddy.
If they buy the course, so to answer your first question, people reach out to me at various stages. People have reached out to me, 2 weeks into a failing project, and the problem is at that point a lot of the cement has dried and there's not much I can do. One, not only from the tribe perspective, but the way Kickstarter works is once someone has contributed at a given reward level, you can't change that level. If nobody's contributed, you can edit it, you can change the price, you can change the copy, you can delete it. But once someone has contributed, it makes sense that if you say, "I'll give you $10 for the documentary download," they can't change the game on you. So when people reach out and their project's already live, it's often way too late, usually because it's way too late to build the tribe, but even if they have some traffic, you can't change the pricing and the conversion. So I try to work with people literally as early as possible. Yes, if they don't have a tribe, I say, you better get one, or you better ingratiate yourself to the people that do have one. So back to the Hannah iPad app example, that's a good one where David Elner, he was a music industry executive. He was not a foodie for 50 years. He just was a person who discovered that he liked to cook sort of as he was retiring. And so if you don't have the tribe yourself, you got to say who does, who's got the permission and the eyes and the ears of these people. And it could be a bunch. It's often a bunch of micro tribes. It's often not just one. So in his case, it's a bunch of food bloggers, right? Who wants to talk about a cool iPad app where you have recipe and a video from the chef, other than like home cook bloggers and recipe bloggers and food bloggers, right? So one way he could ingratiate himself to that, those people that do own those kind of micro tribes, is you give away the app to the blogger and you give them one to give to their tribe, and you could run a little contest that way. So like that's one tactic where The best time to build your tribe is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. If you're trying to launch a Kickstarter and you have not done that tribe, if you have not built that tribe, Kickstarter is not going to send you the traffic and the backers to get funded. You need to fund the people that have permission and then reach out to them, not saying, please talk about my thing, because they don't care about your thing, but figuring out how do you help them provide value to their tribe. So that's why the example of giving the blogger a free, lifetime subscription to the app and giving them one to give away on their blog. Well, now you just solved my problem as a food blogger, because now when I wake up, I've got a post to write, I've got something neat to talk about, and I get to give something away to my tribe. So that's the long story short. If you don't have the tribe, you better find people that do, and then figure out an interesting offer for them.
Oh, that is all great stuff. And I just keep going back to my own situations where I've been in those no tribes when I first wrote my book.
Yep.
You live and you learn.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. We do have a question that came through on YouTube, and what is the process for pitching your services to a big company?
So that's a little broad, but I'll tell you what I've found over the last few years.
Let's see if they're listening. Hey,
sure.
People out there, if you're listening, please be more specific.
That's all right. So what I found is, as an individual, as a small shop, as a freelancer, it's very hard to pitch your services to a big company. They basically are not spending a lot of their day trying to find new one-off freelancers to work with. It depends what your services are, if it's truly services and consulting versus if it's a product. There's nothing better than, the key thing is you have to tell a story that they want to hear. And one thing I learned from Seth is 90-some% of people who work for big companies go to work with one thing on their mind, and that is, how do I please my boss? How do I not get fired today? How do I color inside the lines and do a good job? So it's very unlikely that new services are going to help that person not get fired, right? It's likely that the new services might help that person start a new business line or innovate or whatever. And so you need to find the people in the company that to please their boss would be bringing you in, right? And that's, it seems very basic, but I've seen it over years and years of working with big companies, is they want safety often. There's not a lot of, there are some people in some big companies who wake up every day and say, I need something new and innovative. I need something creative like hashtags to handshakes. I'm going to seek out Mike Ambassador Bruni. That's very, very rare. Mm-hmm. What you need to do is establish your service offerings, tell the stories. As part of your first contract, get the permission to say, if we do X, can I tell that story? A link to your website, and can I say that? Because some companies are very strange about that. They don't want to admit that they hired consultants. They want to take credit for what you've done. So it's important as a consultant that your first client helps you get your second client, your third client, your fourth client. So say, if we do this together, if we're successful, can I tell that story to future clients? And if you can't do it on your website, maybe you can do it in a future proposal meeting.
Excellent. Here's a question, and don't know how much, or you may say, dude, I'm sick of tired of people asking me about this. You mentioned Seth.
Yeah.
And just curious about your experience, and what was that like? What is your biggest takeaway, parenthesis, S in there, takeaways?
Sure.
From that experience.
It's interesting. The subject matter that he covered was the same subject matter that he writes in his books and he talks about on his blog every single day. It was just delivered in person in a more passionate, in-person way. We did field trips and we did things like that. So it wasn't this he didn't save up 6 months of secret content that he's never published anywhere else before. Right. I would say if you want that type of experience, read every book he's ever written, subscribe to his daily blog. It takes about 30 seconds when you wake up every morning to read it. Google Seth Godin Startup School. It's a podcast series. There was about a $4,000 event that he did for the weekend. It was $4,000 to be there in person, but he published all the audio for free afterwards because he's very generous that way. Seth Godin Startup School, there's about 15, 30-minute episodes. And even though I've heard this stuff over and over, I've listened to that thing 4 times all the way through every minute of it,
Wow.
over and over. It's on my iPhone, and I just listen while I walk because it's like drills in, especially the audio format, and being able to listen to it again, it drills into your head repeatedly. So definitely Seth Godin Startup School. And then he's doing something really cool right now called Krypton, which is sort of a hybrid sort of massive open online courses, or MOOCs, these big platforms that are educational platforms. They have a very low completion rate because now the information is free online, but the motivation for someone to actually take it and finish it has to come from within and come from themselves. Right. So Seth is working on a cool project to overcome that and combine the education scale of online with in-person learning. So he's having people gather and organize their own groups in this thing called Krypton, where, let's say you, me, a bunch of other people could go to a coffee. It's kind of like a book club combined with a MOOC, right? We get together and we discuss these concepts. So if someone out there wants to sort of go deeper, I would say either lead or join one of these Krypton groups, because initially they're talking about Seth's material, but then they're going to move on to other teachers, maybe Gary Vaynerchuk. They're going to move on to other teachers around certain concepts and teach that. So that's a great way to kind of combine the scalability of a MOOC with the interaction and in-person online in-person interactions of a real classroom.
Excellent. And as it moves on, is that something Seth controls which I just see the answer thinking of Seth, the answer has to be no. Controls, hey, this is what we're going to do next, this is what we're going to read next.
He is currently defining the curriculum, but even the word curriculum is probably too restrictive for what this is. He's saying, like, take like a Tom Peters or Scott Belsky or somebody like that. He's going to say, here's their books, here's their body of work, here's some discussion questions. So it's, I really think the book club analogy is probably pretty book club combined with MOOC, because a book club doesn't tell you when you have to read the book other than it has to be done by this time. So I think he does his things on Tuesdays. I think this is one of the first weeks right now. So it's a great time to join. But the book club people don't tell you, where you have to read the book or how fast you have to read the book or whatever. They just said, this is the concept, and we're going to get together and talk about it, right? And that's kind of the format of this. So it's not very directive. There's not homework. There's not whatever. It's, you're here because you are self-motivated to learn this stuff, and here's the general topic and the work that person's body of work.
Oh, excellent. That's excellent. It's funny you brought that up, because a couple of years ago, it's probably a year, maybe even 2, I started a Seth Godin book club because I wanted to read all of his books. So I just started a Facebook group, and most people didn't see it through, but it was all that. It's kind of like that whole digital piece. But that was just a mission, and I said, hey, why do it alone?
Yeah.
So I get either audio, or I have a bunch of his books here.
Yeah.
Actual books, and then just started slowly going through each of them as you went, going on walks, and then and getting that stuff in, and so have been a big fan of Seth's.
Yeah.
And
it surprises and bothers me a little bit that, whether it's Seth or Avinash Kaushik on Google Analytics, or Mitch Joel, or all these really, really smart people who give away all this stuff for free, and people don't want to spend the time reading it and learning it, and then they get on Twitter or Facebook or go to conferences or whatever, and they want the shortcut. They feel like, it's like the 10-year overnight success, right? Seth's Kickstarter was funded in 30 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever, but it wasn't. It was funded over 10 years of blogging every day and showing up and building a tribe, and nobody wants to do that. They just want the shortcut. And so I credit you for putting stuff like this together, like leadership, taking this initiative, wrangling these people together, making it happen. That's the kind of initiative, that we all need.
Yeah, I definitely have a great team, all around me, in front, side, back, to definitely make it happen. Any last things? One of the questions I've been asking the people who come on is, what is the one last thing that you want to leave us with that maybe you really don't get to talk about much, but you want to, if you will? It's because, hey, Clay is known as this guy, but you know, in my heart, I love talking about X, Mike, and I wish I had more of an opportunity to talk about X. What is X for you?
So I love education and I love helping people. The Kickstarter and crowdfunding stuff has given me a channel to do that a little bit, and then hopefully the technology startup with Spindos will allow people to randomly connect with each other in big organizations. And I don't know what kind of collisions and connections that's going to create and what benefit I can't lay it out specifically that person X is going to be person Y and they're going to have this specific benefit 4 years from now. I'm just trying to create an environment to maximize the most collisions. But I do love helping people and helping entrepreneurs, and I think teaching entrepreneurship and teaching leadership is going to be critically important. I mean, our government just shut down, right? Like, they turn off the lights, go home. Like, it's such a everything about our industrial system and the government system is so broken that I want people to understand. You know, Seth talks about pick yourself. James Altucher just wrote a book called Choose Yourself that's wonderful. Talks about all this stuff. I just want to leave people with the fact that there's never been a better time in history than to do what you're doing, Mike. You know, like, you're choosing yourself. You're doing this stuff on your own. You came up with hashtags to handshakes. You came up with the bow tie. You came up with your whole brand. Going forward, that's going to be so much more critical because the concept of going to the big factory and pulling a lever all day is done. Even if that lever is I modify spreadsheets all day, you don't think that can be outsourced? The CVS down the road from me is a 30,000-foot CVS. It's run by 3 people: the pharmacist, the photo counter person, and the person in front who makes sure all the self-checkouts are working. So it's this massive CVS run by 3 people. They've outsourced and automated everything, and the photo person's probably next, right? Come in with your card, and well, why do you need a person to hand you the photos?
Right.
So they're going to run a whole CVS, and they could probably get, you know, whoever to make sure the self-checkouts are working. So if they can automate all that, they can automate your job if you push paper or do spreadsheets or make sure the forms are filled out correctly. So you got to figure out how to do the tough, hard, creative work that matters, because that is the future of jobs and the future of our economy. Now, if you look at somebody like yourself, what you do and make these connections, you can't automate that. You can't program an algorithm to put on this, you know, this 10K on 10-1 event. It's this kind of leadership and this kind of initiative that everyone needs to step up. And so, you know, tell your kids, you know, if you don't own your kid's domain name, why not buy, you know, MikeBrooney.com, because they're not going to have a resume that shows the bullets of how well they comply with the system. They need to have a resume that's a website, that's a blog that shows, you know, their leadership and what they've done. So you know, passionately believe that you got to pick yourself, choose yourself, and that is you know, entrepreneurship and choosing yourself is the way the economy is going. Excellent.
Clay, once again, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be with us and help us with our goal with the 10K on 10-1 and the movement with Charity Water. So thank you so much once again. And
thank you, Mike. Thanks for all the work that you do. You're the best.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Man. Peace.